Hello everyone out there, this is Alexander F.O. Nileri from Caliban Crypto. Continue my deconstruction of macro markets, part 3. I'm trying to simplify the macro market so that I can understand what the hell I'm doing and where I'm going with this. I'm going to try and discuss the M2 money supply and global liquidity, and perhaps even quantitative easing. According to Bitcoin Magazine Pro, global liquidity is a term used to determine how much money is available in the global economy. And according to Investopedia, M2 is the measure of money supply that includes cash, checking deposits, and other deposits readily convertible to cash. It basically includes assets that are highly liquid and they can be converted into cash, global liquidity. According to Bitcoin Pro magazine, M2 money supply is the total amount of currency and near money in a country's economy. Cash, checking deposits, savings deposits, money market accounts, retail mutual funds, and time deposits of less than $100,000. I mean, they convert local currency of any other country into dollars to make it all make sense. Now, the global liquidity is used to forecast inflation, and adjacent to that, interest rates. Inflation and interest rates influence the job availability in the marketplace. Yeah, it influences consumer spending, business investments, currency and trade businesses. How is the M2 global money supply calculated? Well, it's calculated by using data from the world's biggest central banks. So we're talking about in the USA, it'd be the Federal Reserve. In China, is the People's Bank of China, or PBC. In Europe is the European Central Bank. In England is the Bank of England. In Japan, the Bank of Japan, or BOJ. In Canada, they use the Bank of Canada, obviously. Russia, the Bank of Russia. And it also includes the Reserve Bank of Australia. Now all this is put together in one pot and used to calculate where M2 money supply. So what does it mean when the global money supply increases? It means the central bank of that country is trying to take interest rates down, as I mentioned in the previous video, part 2. Go and check that out. And it means they're trying to swamp the market with cash flow so that people can feel flushed and go out and buy equipment, buy houses, spend on luxury goods, which is basically what quantitative easing is. They're basically going to print digital money and hand it out to their friends, as I mentioned earlier on. But we're lucky that right now, in relation to Bitcoin, Jerome Powell of the Feds has decided to lower interest rate. First by 5 basis points, and then the next few FOMC meetings, it's going to keep lowering it till 2025. This means that by lowering it, there's going to be more money going on in the financial system. People can easily get money to buy risk-on assets like Bitcoin. If you look at this chart here, you can chart how the global money supply has been tightly correlated to Bitcoin over the last few Bitcoin cycle. Now, why is global liquidity important to Bitcoin? According to Virtual Bacon, a top YouTube influencer, and even Raoul Pal, in any other world of business, having the 2012, 2016, and 2020 Bitcoin halving does not provide enough data for us to be able to elucidate about this 4-year Bitcoin cycle. What's really happening is that the Bitcoin halving is coincided with the American election in 2012, 2016, 2020, and right now 2024. The American Federal Reserve tries to take down the interest rate. This pours money into the system and pours money into degens who buy Bitcoin, who then sell their Bitcoin to buy altcoin. This is where we come in. And if you look at this chart over here, you can see that when you lay the Bitcoin cycle over the M2 money supply, the black one represents Bitcoin and the blue line represents the global money supply. You can see a close and tight correlation between them. So that means if you want to know when to sell your Bitcoin or your altcoins, if you follow this, you can see that it shows you throughout the years what's happened and when to sell. And according to Raoul Pal, there's a 10-week lag between the money supply and the Bitcoin all-time high. So if when you see what the money supply is doing 10 weeks before, once it gets to its highest point and it starts dropping down, you know that in 10 weeks you can sell your Bitcoin, or maybe sell it before, which is what I'm going to follow this time around. If you look at the Investopedia chart, you can see the federal fund rate. The Fed can adjust the money supply to influence the interest rate. By increasing the money supply, they can cause the interest rate to lower. This, again, I emphasize what is called quantitative easing. This makes it easy for customers to borrow money, but by decreasing the money supply, they can raise the interest rate, thereby making it difficult for consumers to borrow money. Right now, since September the 18th, Jerome Powell has decided to increase the money supply so that interest rate can go down. And since then, China too has followed through, because China's having a housing problem crisis. No one wants to buy a house anymore. No one wants to build houses. So China is flooding the market with money, which means there's going to be a global supply from China. Going on to things like Binance, Bybit, all those kind of Chinese cryptocurrency platforms. The next people to do that is Europe. Europe is also going to go into quantitative easing. The UK, Bank of England, is going to go into quantitative easing. So that means the worldwide, we're going to get this money supply going up. And if there's a chat above me or covering me now, how it's been in the past, I think it's going to be the yellow bit here, or the green part here. The green part shows you the money supply, because I don't know which one it is, I can't remember. More money in the global system encourages to buy risk on assets like Bitcoin. It's therefore extremely valuable for us to watch what's going on with the money supply and invest accordingly. So that's what, it's not financial advice, but it's what I'm doing to make sure that I stay ahead of the curve. I know a lot of people are saying that by April, the Bitcoin cycle will be over, the all-time high will be in, but according to Virtual Bacon and Raoul Powell, it looks like it's going to be towards the end of 2025. And if Jerome Powell comes in again and says, I'm going to carry on with this quantitative easing, it could go into the beginning of 2026, like it did in 2017 to 2018, 2020 to 2021. Now let me tackle the liquidity cycle quickly. The liquidity cycle completes roughly every 65 months. And this happens to coincide roughly with the Bitcoin cycle. But the ending is always a bit complicated, a bit long, a bit short. This is why maybe the 2012 cycle was slightly extended. And the sensitivity of crypto to the global liquidity cycle shows risk on assets react more aggressively than the S&P 100 or 500. This macro liquidity explains, again, why Bitcoin cycle extends and shortens. The Economist magazine said on September the 24th, the Bank of China, which I mentioned earlier, PBOC, the country's central bank, cuts interest rates. It lowered bank reserve requirements and took steps to reduce the cost of existing mortgages. As I said, they're having a housing problem. That's about 21 billion a year. Further raising of reserve requirements was possible this year, added Pan Gongsheng, the central bank's governor. Another thing what I got from Dan Taperio was that the interest rate going from 5% to 2.5 probably means Bitcoin will go to $100,000 by the end of this year. I'm closely monitoring the global liquidity cycle and making sure that I'm out of crypto by the time it starts slumping. I'm also closely monitoring the M2 money supply. As I said earlier, it has a lag of 10 weeks to know when I pull out of the whole thing. I've got a bunch of money invested from friends and family, and so it's very important that I actually do this professionally. So I'm going to be selling everything maybe 5 weeks before, once I see the indicator. And this data, according to Virtual Bacon, he'll be doing the same thing as well. And this is much more accurate data analysis than following the Bitcoin cycle on its own. In fact, we can ignore the Bitcoin cycle and just say this is what is influencing it to make it look correlates and coincides, and making it look like the Bitcoin cycle is actually every 4 years. So until next time, when I maybe try and explain another macro market jargon, part 4, is Alexander F. O. Nileri saying ciao.